struggling. Many of my own family are struggling. I myself am struggling. It's hard. A discipline of the body is hard. This has been the case throughout the ages. Holy men and women have gone into the desert to seek the face of God and have, in the process, weakened the body that the spirit would become strong. Christ went into the desert for 40 days, and he fasted, it was said. He fasted in order to bring him closer to the Father and to seek his face, his discernment. And so we see that in imitation of this, we have now entered into that wilderness willingly. In this season of Lent, we see that we are coming face to face with the devil himself in temptations, in the things that we deal with each day, which we don't deal with normally, but they become even more magnified now that we are struggling against the whims of the body in this world. So why do we do this? Why did Christ seek to go into the desert to fast? Saint Benedict of Nursia often equated fasting with a weakening of the spirit of the physical body, that the spiritual body may become strong. And so he prescribed to his monks fasting regularly. The people who do not fast do not become stronger emotionally or spiritually. They do not become closer to God because they do not seek his face. They have so many of these other things that are in front of them and are more important to them than the actual seeking of God. And so fasting was prescribed even from the days of old, that one would fast. One would fast to become weak in the body, that he may become strong in the spirit, and that as such, he may more accurately and more knowingly discern the face of God and know all of his ways. And so today, dear friends, we have embarked upon, we've already been on 1 week of Lent. How fares your soul is the question. How fares your soul? Do you find yourself moving closer to the face of God? Or do you find yourself speaking to the devil more frequently? As the devil had taken Christ to all these different places and said to him, "Cast yourself down, for your angels will be given charge over you, that you will not dash your foot." And then the answer back was, "That you shall not put the Lord your God to the test." So the thing is, do we find ourselves struggling with the devil as he speaks to us in this time of fasting, this time of self-denial? Do we find ourselves listening to him as Eve listened to the devil in the garden and said, you shall not surely die, your eyes shall be fully open, and you shall be wise, knowing both good and evil. And so the thing that we look at, dear ones, is that in the period of the fast, and as we go along, and as we seek God's will for our lives, we find out that we can more clearly see what it is that the devil is actually saying and how to defeat him. You see, the devil will always give you platitudes. You don't have to do this to become this. You can do this my way. You can do this my way, and you won't have to struggle. The devil always provides us the easy way out. The easy way out does not always lead to salvation. In fact, it never leads to salvation. It leads to the destruction of the soul in all ways. And so we look at this time that we spend fasting, of rending the heart, of rending the body to become closer to the will of God. And so at this time, we need to discern quite accurately how to defeat the devil when temptation comes along. And so, if you find that you've been fasting regularly, and you find that you've been strong at this, you find that your body is getting weak, and in your heart you start hearing things like, maybe if I just take a little bit of this, I'll be okay. Or maybe I'll do this, I'll be okay. No one has to know. Well, then your discernment becomes more pointed in telling you, I know who that is. That's actually the devil speaking to me. And he's tempting us as he tempted Christ in the wilderness. And so the temptation is to break the fast for no good personal reason other than health becomes an ever-growing thing in our minds as the fast goes on. You notice that? You notice that the will is always assailed by someone chipping away at that willpower. Yet, it is when we keep the fast, it is when we deny those certain nagging voices that we hear, we find that we are able to more accurately discern what the source is. You see, this is discerning the face of God. This is discerning the will of God. That as we are in obedience with God, the closer we become to His will, the more we are more accurately able to say, Satan, I know you. Get thee behind me. And we're able to cast off the old man and his acts. The old man and his acts. St. Benedict referred to a casting off of Satan as a casting off of the old man and his acts, a taking off of the old man's clothes, placing them to the side, and donning the pure white alb of the mendicant, a person who fasts and prays daily, because they have chosen to seek the face and the will of God above all other things. As we shall be, dear ones, we have to do the same thing. Even though we live out here in the secular world, we are in a sense cultivating our own monastery within. That we have our own convent of where we deny the self, we take upon ourselves the new clothes of a mendicant monk. We place upon ourselves the white alb purity, and over that we place a scapular as is worn, a mantle that gives an idea of purity, of sanctity. We place upon ourselves that obligation during Lent. The world will tell you that this is just foolishness. Why do you deny yourself when there's so plenteous, when everything is so plentiful? Why do you deny yourself? If you truly don't know yourself now, you will never know yourself. Don't worry about it. Well, we see the way that the world is going and who's in control of that. So then we can always look at their advice and say, yeah, I see how it's working for you. The unexamined life, the unexamined heart leads to a life filled with debauchery, filled with an anything goes attitude, and you will allow anything to happen. You take prayer out of schools, but put a Bible in every prison cell. It's a shame that that attitude leads to something such as that a young person has to go to a prison to find Christ. I would say to you, become an inner mendicant monk. Take the time to observe the rules of the fast. Not simply because they're rules, but because they lead to the face of God. Make yourself chaste and pure. Seek the will of God in all things. And the devil will have no conversation with you. But the moment you listen to one thing from the devil, it will become an avalanche of more and more and more as he speaks to you. He will bring you ever closer to his side. He will convince you that none of these things are really important. And once you start listening to him, you become walking closer to him instead of God. We are to imitate Christ in the way that he dealt with the devil. As Christians, we are to tell him, to Satan, get thee behind me, as Peter said. I know thee, for get thee behind me. That was Christ saying that to Peter. Take the time to cultivate the inner monastery, that place within where all is still, filled with prayer. Deny the self and open your arms and hearts up to God. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.